Mr. Beast has taken over me in subscribers, but I have one secret trick up my sleeve. Book review. Listen, it was either that or Happy Wheels Part 200. I should have done Happy Wheels Part 200. Alright, here's what I'm gonna do. 6 books that changed the way I think. To show that I don't care. I no longer care about subs. The first book, I know you have never ever heard of this thing. Buddhism. What is that? That's right. The anthology of the Pali Canon. If you want to read Buddhism, go ahead. Here you go, read it. Knock yourself out. I see you in a couple years. But thanks to the Buddha's words, a summary, you can get to all of the good bits and skip all of the repetition. There's a lot of repetition in the Pali Canon. And what have I declared? This is suffering. I have declared. This is the origin of suffering. I have declared. This is the cessation of suffering. I have declared. This is the way leading to the sensation of suffering. I have declared. Why have I declared that? Okay, fine. This one also has a lot of repetition. But it obviously has a lot of interesting things, and I'll summarize the bits that stood out to me. We're all gonna live. Okay, follow along. Yeah? We're all gonna die. What the fuck do you do in between? Only acceptable answer. Watch Pewdiepie all day. Okay, you're good. Buddhism looks at life as suffering. Now, I don't personally subscribe to this idea, but they go into depth of talking about craving as suffering. And this sort of opened my eyes up to self-control. According to Buddhism, craving is suffering. If you want something, you are suffering as a consequence. And I know what you're thinking, you little smartass. Well, if craving is suffering, all I have to do is get the thing. Homeless people, just buy a house. Look at this dude giving into every craving that he has. Suffering don't work like that, bro. Sure, it might satisfy you in the moment, but after that, you're gonna want another. And then another. Or a bigger. Or a better. And a better. Itty bitty. Where does it end? Well, never. If it will go on forever, you will keep wanting stuff and crave forever and be reborn in the wheel of samsara, I think. Listen, I didn't make that up, the book said it. If you think about your existence as a mere probability, and you already existing being a testimony to that being a possibility, and if time is infinite, or even just space is infinite, then what's not there to say that? To me, this is really about self-control. Take control of your body and don't live as a passive passenger. So to reduce this suffering of craving is not to limit it, and it's not to give in to it, or cheat days, but it's to be free from it by uprooting it. This really helped with my own problems in the past. I talked about it, and I'm free from it. Hooray! But I think in general, self-control is something, it helps you examine yourself and what you want and why you want it, and is this really going to help you with anything? Live life good. Don't live forever bad. Buddhism. Next book. Aristotle. Let me say that normally. Nicomachean Ethics. Wow, what a fun title. Please tell me more, Felix. Okay, I will. Aristotle, the greatest one of the greatest philosopher of all time. He studied under Plato. He taught Alexander the Great himself. He said all these amazing things. Motherfucker thought women had less teeth than men. You could have just checked, bro. You had a wife. I googled it. Bro, what happened? I want to know. Nicomachean Ethics is the first philosophy book that I read that discusses the idea of happiness. And 2,300 years or whatever later, it's still pretty goddamn relevant. Some of us may look at happiness as reaching wealth, fame, pleasure. Wrong. I tell you why it's wrong, because these things can be stripped away from you in the moment. Oof. Oh, not happy anymore. That is not happiness. Happiness is what the Greeks used the word for eudaimonia, I think. That was the most Swedish way to say that. Eudaimonia. It's a state of being, of flourishing as an individual. Ah, so happy now. Nothing, no one can take away from me. It's more of a goal than anything, and you reach it by actively being good, making the right choices, and practicing virtue as a habit. To oversimplify all of that, don't go on Twitter and Instagram. Those are bad habits, okay? Stop it. Virtue is an active choice that you as an individual have to make, and we usually know about it, we just don't like to think about it. This is obviously oversimplifying, but this is a really good book. And if this interests you, I recommend reading it and digging deeper. It personally helped me maintain and develop better habits for myself, and for that, I am thankful. Even though you can't count, you said some good stuff. Next book. Everyone always talks about Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius, he was so cool. He was like an emperor, but also philosopher. Okay, sure, absolutely, but don't sleep on Epictetus. Wait a minute. Sleep on Epictetus? The Enchiridion by Epictetus. Best name. Base name. On the very first page, he describes Stoicism perfectly. It's almost like they came up with it. There are things in life that you can control, and there are things in life that you can't control. Don't worry about things you can't control, okay? For example, whenever I drive in Japan, it's really difficult because the GPS a lot of times will tell me left, but I can clearly tell that the road is going right. So in that moment, I have to make a decision based on my intuition. Should I go left or right? And somehow I always pick the worst goddamn choice, and my 20-minute trip is all of a sudden 1 fucking hour just because of the goddamn. But that doesn't annoy me anymore because of Stoicism. Stoicism has lately become more popular, and it can of course be applied to anything. They talk a lot about anger and why that's not a useful emotion. But I don't think people fully realize to what extent they took this idea. Stoicism was a school of thought that came up during very trying times, under tyranny. Burn down my house, take all my belongings, take my arms, take my legs, don't take my legs. But you can never take my virtue. To me, Stoicism is all about freedom. You can be the richest and most powerful, but you can still ultimately be a slave if other people are controlling your actions. If you have fear of losing what you have, then you are ultimately being controlled by it. And we all have ideas and opinions of what is good and bad. For example, dying is bad, right? Wrong. You're wrong. At least according to Stoicism, they compare fear of death, for example, as similar to a baby crying about not getting what they want. Because dying is sort of part of nature. You cry, baby. Good or bad doesn't exist. It's just something that we made up. The only thing that is true is what is according to nature. And I think one of the things that stands out the most is that if you are in a situation of trying times, that's for a Stoic an opportunity, rather, to display this virtue, this eudaimonia. And that way, ultimately, flipping pain ship on its head doesn't exist. Thank you. I will no longer be mad at the GPS machine. I promise. My point is that it's difficult, okay? Even Marcus complained how difficult that is. Next book. Gay science. I know what you want to do. It's okay. I give you the pass. The first time I read Nietzsche, I read Beyond Good and Evil. I didn't understand a goddamn fucking thing. Don't watch my book review. It's embarrassing. And I'm not going to pretend I'm some Nietzsche scholar now either, but I had a bad time first reading him because he was referencing all these different philosophers, and I had no clue who they even were. After reading more philosophy, coming back to Nietzsche again, my reaction was still bad because I went, this guy is making fun of all my heroes. What the fuck? So Nietzsche for me was a slow cook, I will admit. But the best way to understand philosophy is to understand the person behind it. And the more I feel like I had done that, the more I came to love Nietzsche. He loves his words. He's very great at them. He's very harsh and very brutal. But you understand that he targets philosophers that he likes, or that he at least admires to some degree. I guess some he just fucking hated. But, you know, Stoicism is passionless. Can't refute it. But to me, what stands out the most is his life-affirming work. Nietzsche wanted to overcome nihilism. Look at this book. Look how dark and epic and scary it is. Oh, nihilism. That's what it's all about. No, he wanted to overcome it. What the fuck? None of this life is suffering, boo-hoo bullshit. It's not that life is suffering. It's what we do with that suffering. Give meaning to it. We all know this already. A hero's tale would be nothing without the villain. It's that simple. I feel like I have a lot to say about Mustache Man. I might keep it for another time. I can tell you, however, before reading Nietzsche, I listened to Kelly Clarkson's Stronger, What Doesn't Kill You, and I had no visible reaction. Now, I listen to it and I go, thank you, Kelly Clarkson. I get it now. Next book. This one is a bit out of left field. The Mathematical Universe. Yeah. I pretty much talked about all of these books already, so I apologize for the repetition I have declared. But this book brought up so many scientific possibilities that I had obviously no fucking clue about. They were never taught to me in school, and to me, they're just mind-blowing. I really don't want to sound like that one ninja tweet. I can't stop thinking about quantum physics, or whatever it is. Or to be that one person that brings up the double slit experiment in every single goddamn conversation. I have been that person. I apologize. But most of these philosophy books that I previously mentioned, they were written so long ago, where in a time where people didn't know much about the world, or our universe for that matter, so the possibilities seemed endless. Now we know so much about the world, and I would like to know less of it, okay? Am I the only one with this opinion? The sun is a giant ball of gas. Whoopity fucking do. Thank you so much, science. No, I don't need an iPhone 12 instead of 11. It doesn't matter. I'm joking. What really stood out the most to me in this book was the idea of parallel universes. I made a video about it as well. But how it's actually logically possible. I feel like it puts me not just in the mind of all these philosophy books, but also in the time. It's crazy to me how ideas discussed thousands of years ago have a logical foot in science today. And even philosophy about happiness still has a relevance. I think this book did such a great job at describing these complex ideas in a way that's easily digestible. And to me, that's just very exciting. I don't think we'll ever know everything, but I also think that doesn't matter because we will always have philosophy. Next book. I randomly stumbled upon this book. This book loves you. It's written by what I think is the greatest philosopher of our time, Pewdiepie. I don't know who that is, but I would love to collaborate with him one day. Alright, that's it. Oh, congrats, Mr. Beast. Obviously just joking. But delete your channel as promised. You have 24 hours.